My name is Amanda Collins. I'm 32 years old, and 3 years ago, I bought my first home, a modest but beautiful two-bedroom house that symbolized everything I had worked for. Hardwood floors I refinished myself, a garden that became my weekend retreat, a kitchen I poured love into. It wasn't just a house, it was my freedom, my independence. It was mine. Last Sunday, I invited my parents over for dinner. I had just been promoted to senior consultant at Richardson Financial Group, my biggest career milestone yet. I planned the evening down to the last detail. I made my father's favorite marinated steak, roasted garlic mashed potatoes for my mother, and even baked an apple pie using my grandmother's old recipe. I set the table with my best china, lit candles, and opened a nice bottle of Cabernet. I wanted them to see I had built something real, something stable. They arrived around 5 p.m., but it wasn't just them. My brother Ryan was with them unannounced. My mother waved it off casually. He didn't have plans, so we brought him, she said. Of course, I smiled and welcomed him. I always tried to make room for family. Ryan barely spoke, his eyes glued to his phone. My father handed me a cheap bottle of wine and said it was my favorite. It wasn't. My mother commented on the cost of my curtains and how I should have chosen a different color. My father pointed out that the kitchen backsplash I had installed wasn't perfectly grouted. The joy I had hoped to share was slowly draining away. Still, I pressed on. After serving dinner, I made the announcement I had been waiting all week to share. I've been promoted to senior consultant, a significant raise, my own office, and my own client portfolio. Silence. Then my mother finally spoke. "That's nice, dear. Will you have to work more hours?" My father asked how much the raise was. I told him. He raised his eyebrows and gave a short, "Well, good for you. About time." Ryan snorted. Must be nice to sit in an office all day and make that kind of money. I swallowed the familiar feeling of disappointment. "I've worked really hard for this," I said, trying to stay positive. "You've always been so focused on your career," my mother said, not as a compliment, but as a criticism, as if ambition was a defect. They spent the next 15 minutes talking about Ryan's bathroom renovation project at a local restaurant. I sat there listening, quietly erasing the picture I had imagined of a proud family celebration. Then came dessert. As I poured coffee and served pie, my father straightened up. His entire demeanor shifted. Serious. Formal. "Amanda," he said, "your mother and I have been thinking about your situation." I blinked. "My situation? This house, it's too much for one person," he said, "and frankly, it should benefit the entire family." I froze, my coffee cup halfway to my lips. "What are you talking about? We've invested everything in you." My mother jumped in. "Your education, your upbringing, your success is the result of our sacrifices." Ryan nodded, a smug grin spreading across his face. "This home," my father continued, "is a product of that investment, and it's time we recognize that. Officially, I repeated. "What are you saying?" "We're saying this house belongs to the family now," he declared. "Your mother and I will be moving in. Ryan will handle the renovations." Ryan leaned in. "We're thinking of knocking out the kitchen wall to open up the floor plan. Mom's always wanted an open concept." It was surreal. I looked at their faces, searching for a smile, a sign this was a twisted joke, but there was none, just expectation. "This is my house," I said slowly. "I bought it with my money. My name is on the deed. I pay the mortgage." My father waved his hand, dismissing me. "We're family. What's yours is ours." "No," I said, stronger this time. "That's not how it works. After everything I'd done, covering half their furnace replacement last winter, sending money when they struggled with taxes, letting them store family heirlooms in my home, they were trying to take it all away." My mother's expression turned cold. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us, with selfishness." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Leave your keys and get out," my father demanded. "This house belongs to the family now." I was so stunned I couldn't speak. Then he extended his hand, palm open. "Keys, now." Something inside me went very still, quiet. I opened my purse, took out my keys, placed them on the table, and walked out. No fight. No screaming, just silence. "You'll regret this," my father called out as I reached the door. I didn't look back. I got in my car and drove straight to Stephanie's apartment, my best friend, my safe place. My heart was racing, my eyes filled with tears I didn't know how to stop. They've lost their minds, she said, horrified, when I told her what had happened. They're my parents, I whispered. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. Stephanie shook her head, grabbed my shoulders. No, Amanda, they just tried to steal your house. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a crime. I wanted to believe otherwise. I really did. But the next morning, everything changed. I received a phone call from the mortgage company, and what they told me made it painfully clear. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a premeditated plan. I was still on Stephanie's couch the next morning, numb and exhausted. The events of the night before kept replaying in my mind. My father's demand, my mother's cold stare, Ryan's smirk. I kept questioning myself. Had I misunderstood something? Had I done something to cause this? Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick up. This is Amanda Collins, I said, my voice still hoarse from crying. Miss Collins, this is David Herrera from Midwest Mortgage Services. I'm calling about some unusual activity regarding your mortgage account. I sat up straight. Unusual. How? Someone attempted to change the contact information on your account yesterday afternoon, he said, calm but firm. They also asked about adding co-borrowers to your mortgage. The system flagged the request as suspicious. It didn't come through our secure portal. My heart dropped. Do you know who made the request? I asked, though I already had a sinking feeling. The names provided were Richard and Margaret Collins, David said. My parents. They had some of your personal information, he continued, including your social security number. That's why it reached my desk. Of course they did. They were my parents. They probably still had copies of my birth certificate and every childhood document in a filing cabinet somewhere. Are you authorizing them to make changes to your account? David asked. No, I said firmly. Absolutely not. Understood. We'll lock down your account and add enhanced security measures, but I strongly recommend you consider contacting law enforcement. After I hung up, I just sat there, staring, breathing, trying to process what had just happened. This wasn't confusion or miscommunication. This was fraud. And it wasn't just attempted control. It was calculated theft of my life, my stability, my future. I called the local police department's non-emergency line. I explained the situation, how my parents had taken my house keys, tried to claim my home, and were now attempting to access my mortgage account. The officer on the line listened carefully. Do they still have access to your home? He asked. Yes, I said quietly. I left my keys on the table. He paused. You may want to meet officers at the property to ensure no one has entered unlawfully. We can document any unauthorized entry and assist with re-entry if needed. 2 hours later, I stood outside my own front door. My hands shook as I used a spare emergency key Stephanie had helped me retrieve from the magnetic box under my car's fender. 2 officers stood behind me. The house was quiet, but inside, signs of their presence were everywhere. Dinner dishes still on the table, crusted with food. Drawers slightly open in my home office. My keys gone. Looks like someone's been in here since you left, one officer noted. Let's get everything documented. You'll also want to change the locks today. As they wrote up their report, my phone rang again. It was a law office. Miss Collins? This is Barbara Mitchell from Mitchell Legal Services. Your friend Stephanie asked me to reach out. She said you're dealing with a property dispute. Within an hour, I was sitting across from Barbara, early 50s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. Her demeanor was calm, no nonsense, but something about her made me feel safe. After I explained everything, she leaned forward. Let me get this straight. Your parents demanded your house keys, claimed the property was a family asset, and then attempted to change your mortgage information? Yes, I whispered. And I just found out from the bank that they used my social security number. Barbara nodded slowly. With your permission, I'd like to run a background check on them. If there's a history of financial manipulation, it could help our case. I hesitated, then nodded. Yes, please. 30 minutes later, her investigator came back with a file that chilled me to the bone. Your parents are in deep financial trouble, Barbara said, flipping through the pages. 3 credit cards in collections, a tax lien from 2 years ago, and they recently took a second mortgage on their home. They're underwater. I swallowed hard. Everything made sense now. Their sudden interest in my finances, my promotion, their bizarre claim that my home was a family investment. Barbara continued. More troubling, this isn't their first time doing something like this. 7 years ago, your maternal grandmother filed a complaint. She accused your parents of trying to take over her retirement accounts. What? I blinked.
My grandmother passed away 5 years ago. They handled everything after she died. Barbara looked up. The complaint was later withdrawn, but the record exists. I sat there, stunned. A cold realization settled over me. This wasn't a sudden breakdown. This was a pattern. How had I not seen it? Barbara leaned forward gently. Amanda, I know this is a lot, but we need to act fast. First we'll issue a cease and desist letter. Then we file for a temporary restraining order. We need to legally keep them away from your property. I nodded, my throat tight. Do whatever we need to. As I signed the paperwork, my phone buzzed again. A text from Ryan. You're overreacting. Mom and Dad just want to help manage the house. Family looks out for each other. You've always been selfish. Dad says if you get lawyers involved, you're no longer welcome at family gatherings. I showed the messages to Barbara. She simply said, classic manipulation tactics. We'll add them to the file. That evening, Stephanie drove me to a locksmith. You're staying with me until this is over, she insisted. I can't impose. You're not imposing, she said firmly. You're protecting yourself. There's a difference. That night in her guest room, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about every moment of my life through a different lens. Had their love always been conditional? Had I always been more of an asset than a daughter? I felt something inside me shift. A decision. A quiet but unbreakable resolve. I would protect myself. Legally, emotionally, financially. No more guilt. No more silence. They tried to take my house, but they would not take my voice. 2 days after that twisted dinner, I returned to my house with a police officer by my side, and a locksmith ready to replace every lock in the building. Barbara had warned me to document everything. Take witnesses. Don't go alone. I wasn't just reclaiming property. I was reclaiming power. As we pulled into the driveway, my heart sank. My parents' car was parked in front of my home. So was Ryan's truck. I looked at Officer Wilson. That's them. They're not supposed to be here. He nodded. Stay in your car until I check things out. I watched him walk toward my front door. The steps I had walked 100 times now felt foreign. It was like watching someone approach a crime scene I used to call home. When the officer knocked, my father opened the door. Calm. Casual. Not the least bit surprised to see him. After a brief conversation, Officer Wilson motioned for me to approach. Miss Collins, please come here. My stomach turned as I got out of the car and walked up the sidewalk. My sidewalk to the house I had paid for, built a life in, sacrificed to create. I stepped onto the porch. Behind my father I could see my mother and Ryan inside, rearranging furniture. My furniture. My couch had been moved. My art was gone from the walls. They weren't visiting. They were moving in. Miss Collins has identified you as unauthorized occupants of her residence, Officer Wilson said firmly. Do you have any legal documents showing your right to be on this property? My father puffed up, indignant. We don't need documents. We're her family. This house is a family asset. Sir, the officer replied, unless your name is on the deed or mortgage, you have no right to be inside this home without the owner's permission. We raised her, my mother chimed in, clutching a throw pillow from my living room like it meant something. We sacrificed for her. This house exists because of us. That's not how the law works, the officer said again, more forcefully. Ryan emerged from the hallway carrying a box. My box. Inside were personal files, old tax returns, birth certificates, financial documents I kept locked in my office. I pointed. He's taking my documents. Ryan rolled his eyes. They're just family paperwork. Nothing big. Miss Collins, Officer Wilson asked, do you want these individuals removed from your property? I didn't hesitate. Yes. That one word felt like a lightning bolt through my spine. Yes. The officer nodded and turned to them. You'll need to leave immediately. Now. What followed was one of the most surreal moments of my life. My parents, who had helped raise me, who had sent me birthday cards and tucked me in as a child, were now being removed from my home by a police officer for breaking and entering. My mother sobbed, asking how I could do this to my own family. My father cursed under his breath, muttering about betrayal and entitlement. Ryan just glared. Your true colors, he whispered as he passed me. I watched them walk down the steps, carrying nothing but entitlement and resentment. Once they were gone, I walked back through the house, room by room. My eyes scanned the damage. The kitchen drawers had been rifled through. My home office had clearly been accessed. My laptop was still warm. Family pictures were missing. My grandmother's antique jewelry box gone. Looks like they took more than just space, Officer Wilson said grimly, making notes in his report. You should document the missing items, and consider filing for a restraining order. I already had. Later that evening, I forwarded the updated police report and list of missing items to Barbara. She added it to our growing case file. That night I barely slept. The silence in the house was heavier than ever before. Even with the new locks installed, I felt exposed, violated. The next morning, I received a message from Martin, my boss. Amanda, I heard you're dealing with a family issue, he said gently over the phone. Is everything okay? I froze. How did you hear? Your father called the office, he said, his voice laced with discomfort. He asked for your employment verification for something about a family financial consolidation. When we declined, he got upset. My face burned with shame. I'm so sorry, I said. I had no idea they would, Martin interrupted. You don't owe me an apology. Take the time you need. Your job is secure. I'll inform security that your family is not to be allowed in the building. It was humiliating, but also clarifying. They were escalating, desperate, and careless. That night, as I was organizing legal paperwork, a new voicemail came in. My father's voice, cold, measured, threatening. You're making a big mistake, Amanda. We're your family. We have rights to what's yours. If you fight this, you'll regret it. I forwarded the voicemail to Barbara immediately. She called back almost instantly. This strengthens the case for a full restraining order, she said. The threat, the unauthorized access, the presence at your home, it's all part of a coordinated pattern. We'll request a judge's intervention this week. By now, even Stephanie was locking her apartment door behind me at night. I don't trust them, she said. You're not just dealing with manipulation anymore. You're dealing with people who are losing control and getting reckless. She was right. A few days later, I returned home from work to find something new. A broken porch light, and a note, tucked into my doorframe. Family takes care of its own, one way or another. That was it. That was the final line they crossed. No more fear. No more second guessing. The very next morning, Barbara filed for an emergency restraining order against my parents and Ryan. This has gone beyond entitlement, she said. This is now harassment. Standing in that courtroom a few days later, shaking, tired, heart pounding, I realized something powerful. They weren't going to stop on their own, so I would stop them. Legally. Permanently. This wasn't just about a house anymore. This was about identity. This was about freedom. And I would fight with everything I had to protect what I had built. Because I finally understood. They weren't trying to come home. They were trying to erase mine. The county courthouse loomed like a fortress. Tall, cold, and echoing with the weight of other people's broken families. But this time I wasn't just another daughter with hurt feelings. I was a homeowner, a professional, a woman fighting for her right to live in peace. Barbara met me at the entrance, holding a navy binder thick with evidence. Stay calm, she reminded me. Stick to facts. Let them show who they are. I nodded, gripping the binder like a shield. Inside were copies of the mortgage statement, the police reports, the threatening texts, and voicemails. My life in print. My sanity documented. My parents arrived 5 minutes later, my mother wearing a soft beige cardigan and watery eyes, my father in a suit that still couldn't hide the sharpness of his scowl. Ryan trailed behind them, arms folded like a defiant teenager despite being 30. They didn't acknowledge me, not a nod, not a glance, but my mother's hand clutched her purse like it contained a ticking bomb. Their attorney was a man named James Westfield, slick, confident, the type of lawyer you hire when you want to spin a story, not tell one. He greeted Barbara like they'd battled in court before. This is a family matter, he said smoothly. We're hoping to resolve it through dialogue. Barbara didn't even blink. Your client's committed fraud. Dialogue isn't going to fix that. We were called into the courtroom. Judge Elena Martinez presided, a woman in her 60s with silver hair pulled into a bun and eyes that looked like they could see straight through lies. She reviewed our restraining order request with quiet intensity. Before finally speaking, I understand this is a dispute involving property, family relationships, and alleged financial misconduct. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, Barbara said. The petitioner, Amanda Collins, is seeking protection from her parents and brother following a series of attempts to take over her home and financial identity. Westfield stood up. Your Honor, with all due respect, this is simply a communication breakdown. My clients were under the impression the house was a shared family investment. Barbara slid the mortgage statement across the table. Miss Collins is the sole owner. No co-borrowers. No family contributions. Her parents attempted to access her mortgage account using stolen personal information. Judge Martinez looked to me. Miss Collins, did your parents or brother ever contribute financially to your down payment, mortgage, or renovations? No, Your Honor, I said clearly. Every dollar came from my salary, my savings, my sweat. And have they been granted legal access to your home in writing? Never.
Barbara then presented the voicemail from my father, the text messages from Ryan, and the note left on my door. When she reached the police report describing the forced removal of my parents from the house, the judge raised an eyebrow. Westfield tried to redirect. This isn't fraud, it's misguided affection, a desire to remain close-knit, to help manage the home and ensure Amanda's well-being. Judge Martinez leaned forward, attempting to change a mortgage, entering a home uninvited, taking personal documents. That's not misguided affection, that's illegal. Then came the moment I feared the most, my parents' testimony. My mother took the stand first, tears streaming down her face like a script she had practiced. We raised Amanda to be strong, she said in a quivering voice, but she's always been impulsive with money. We were worried, we just wanted to help. Help by moving into her home without consent, the judge asked. She wasn't using the space, my mother whispered. There's so much room and family should share resources. My father followed, cold, calculating. She wouldn't even be in that house without us. We paid for her schooling, her clothes, everything. That house, her whole career, is built on our sacrifices. Barbara didn't let that go. Mr. Collins, can you provide documentation showing financial support toward the purchase of this property? But that doesn't mean it wasn't owed to us morally. Judge Martinez tilted her head. Morality and legality are not the same. Then Ryan testified. I was just helping out, he said smugly, keeping things organized, making sure the house didn't fall into disrepair. Barbara stood. Did you carry out boxes of Amanda's personal financial records? They were family documents, he snapped. They included her social security card and tax returns. Were you aware of that? Ryan hesitated. I didn't look inside. Really? Because the moment you were confronted by police, you dropped the box. The judge leaned back, folding her hands. What concerns me most, she said, is the pattern. The Collins family attempted mortgage access, entered the property unlawfully, removed personal documents, and continued harassment even after being told to stop. Silence filled the courtroom. It was suffocating. I am granting the temporary restraining order, Judge Martinez declared. Effective immediately, Richard, Margaret, and Ryan Collins are not to come within 500 feet of Miss Collins' home or workplace for the next 90 days. My mother gasped. My father muttered under his breath. Ryan slammed his notebook on the table, but I didn't flinch. I stood tall. As we exited the courtroom, my mother called after me, Amanda, please, we're your family. I kept walking. Barbara's hand touched my elbow. Let them say whatever they want. They showed the court exactly who they are. The legal victory should have felt like a release. A weight lifted, but instead it unleashed something else. My phone buzzed that night with messages from cousins, uncles, people I hadn't seen in years. How could you do this to your parents? They gave you everything. This is family. We don't take each other to court. My father had already begun spinning the story, painting himself and my mother as victims of a cold, ungrateful daughter. But I refused to let their narrative become the truth. With Stephanie's help, I wrote one message. I'm sorry you've been given incorrect information. My parents attempted to take ownership of my home without my consent. This is now a legal matter. I won't discuss it further. Some people respected that, others didn't. But for the first time in my life, I didn't care. Let them believe what they want. The truth was on paper, filed, stamped, admissible in court. They tried to erase my identity. Instead, they forced me to claim it louder than ever, and I was just getting started. I thought the court ruling would be the end of it. The judge had granted a 90-day restraining order, and I'd assumed naively that my family would back down, that the shame of being legally barred from their own daughter's home might snap them back to reality. I was wrong, because what they couldn't steal in person, they began to attack online. 2 days after the hearing, I got a call from Martin, my boss. He sounded uncomfortable, concerned. Amanda, I need to let you know something. My stomach dropped. A few of your clients received disturbing emails, anonymous, claiming you're financially unstable. that you're under investigation, that you've had mental health issues. My mouth went dry. Do you know who sent them? I managed to ask. We traced the IP. It matches the same address your father used when he contacted our office last week. There it was. They weren't just trying to take my house anymore. They were trying to ruin my name. The emails had been sent from dummy Gmail accounts with no replies, just long dramatic warnings about my alleged instability. They weren't just embarrassing, they were damaging. Martin assured me that he and the company's legal team were standing by me. We've seen how you handled this whole situation. With composure, with dignity. Don't let them get in your head. But I was already there, spiraling. What if one of the clients believed them? What if this promotion, the one I had sacrificed nights, weekends, and relationships for, slipped away because of a campaign my own family had launched? Barbara responded immediately. We're filing for a permanent restraining order, she said, her tone razor sharp, and we'll be adding defamation and digital harassment to the claim. She reached out to Martin, gathered the evidence, and had it all documented and notarized within a day. This isn't about protecting your home anymore, Amanda. This is about protecting your future. But it didn't stop there. That week I found a note in my mailbox, handwritten, unsigned. You can't hide behind lawyers forever. The same message appeared in an email, then in another letter, then on a torn piece of newspaper taped to my windshield. I called the police again, made another report, installed additional cameras and motion sensor lights, changed my phone number. Again, I varied my routes to work. I double-checked every lock before bed. I stopped opening my blinds at night. I started looking over my shoulder in parking lots. This wasn't just legal anymore. It was psychological warfare. And the most twisted part, most of it was coming from people who had once tucked me in and kissed me goodnight. The court hearing for the permanent restraining order was set. This time I walked into the courthouse less anxious and more furious. Barbara stood tall beside me. We weren't playing defense anymore. We were fighting back. The judge remembered us, Judge Martinez. She looked graver than before. What began as a property dispute, she said, now includes multiple allegations of harassment, defamation, and identity-based threats. Barbara presented the evidence, the emails, the handwritten notes, the police reports, and the IP addresses, linking it all back to my parents' home. Then she played the voicemail my father had left. The one where he warned me I'd regret this. When my parents entered the courtroom, they brought a new attorney, a woman named Patricia Wong. Her job wasn't to defend them, it was to reframe them. She started with the sympathy card. They're elderly, she said, they've made mistakes, but this is family, and family should heal, not fracture. Judge Martinez cut her off. Mistakes are unintentional, she said. This shows a deliberate and ongoing pattern of manipulation and intimidation. My father stood to speak. This has all been blown out of proportion, he said. Amanda's not well. She needs help, not court orders. There it was. When control didn't work, they resorted to character assassination. Judge Martinez narrowed her eyes. Do you have any evidence to support those claims? No, he admitted. Then I suggest you refrain from making them. Then Ryan took the stand. He tried to play innocent, claimed he only showed up near my house to make sure everything was okay. Barbara shot back. Despite a legal order barring you from doing so, Ryan shrugged. Family obligation trumps court papers. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Judge Martinez slammed her gavel once. That is not how the law works, Mr. Collins. That moment sealed it. The judge issued a permanent restraining order, 500 feet from my home, my workplace. No contact, direct or indirect. Any violation would lead to criminal charges. As she read her ruling, Ryan exploded. This is bulls, he shouted. She's tearing the family apart. She owes us. The bailiffs moved in. Judge Martinez looked unimpressed. Contempt of court. Mr. Collins will spend the night in county jail. I watched as my brother, my childhood protector, the boy who once held my hand on the first day of school, was led away in handcuffs. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like grief. As we left the courtroom, Barbara turned to me. You did it, she said softly. You drew the line, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt exhausted. Because even with the court on my side, I knew one thing. You can win the legal battle, but healing from the emotional war that takes longer.